Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station Arcturus, her reflection ghosting against the reinforced plasma glass as she watched the ships of humanity's combined fleet conducting their routine patrol patterns. 20 years of peace had made these patrols seem almost ceremonial, but Chen had never lost the edge that kept her rising through the ranks during the resource wars of 2157. The holographic display beside her flickered to life, projecting the image of her second-in-command, Commander David Okafor. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual gravitational distortions at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Pattern suggests it's not natural." Chen's posture straightened imperceptibly. "Show me." The hologram shifted to display a three-dimensional map of the solar system's outer reaches. Several pulsing red dots indicated the anomalies, moving in a formation too precise to be anything but artificial. First contact protocols had been established decades ago, but humanity had yet to encounter any spacefaring civilizations. Until now. "Alert status yellow," Chen ordered. "Wake up the diplomatic corps, but keep our defensive grid powered. Let's not be paranoid, but let's not be stupid either." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity as Earth's various power blocks were notified and emergency sessions of the United Earth Council were convened. Chen watched as the unknown vessels drew closer, their energy signatures unlike anything in humanity's database. The vessels finally emerged from their faster-than-light travel just beyond Mars' orbit. 7 ships, each one nearly the size of Earth's largest space station, their hulls covered in what appeared to be crystalline growths that pulsed with internal light. They were beautiful in an alien way, but Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking at the tip of a much larger spear. First contact was established through quantum entanglement communications, a technology humanity had only recently mastered. The aliens identified themselves as the Kryvax, a species that had achieved spacefaring capability millennia ago. Their message was courteous, but carried an unmistakable undertone of condescension. "We greet you, young species," their ambassador, who called himself First Speaker Orcs, announced. "We have watched your development with interest. Your recent adoption of quantum communications has qualified you for formal contact. We come to offer guidance and protection." Chen sat in on the initial diplomatic exchanges, watching as Earth's diplomats attempted to navigate the complex dance of first contact. The Kryvax spoke of trade agreements, technological exchanges, and protection from less civilized species. But with each passing hour, Chen's unease grew. The Kryvax avoided direct questions about their military capabilities or the extent of their empire. They spoke of protection, but never specified from what. The breaking point came during the third day of negotiations. A junior analyst in Chen's staff discovered that the Kryvax ships were broadcasting on frequencies that matched theoretical mind-influence technologies Earth had abandoned as too dangerous decades ago. When confronted, the Kryvax response was immediate and chilling. "You dare accuse us of deception?" First Speaker Zorax's holographic form seemed to grow larger, the crystalline growths on his exoskeleton flaring with internal light. "We offered you the gentle path to submission, but you prove as primitive as your technology suggests. The Kryvax Empire does not tolerate insolence from protectorate species." The transmission cut off abruptly, and the Kryvax ships began powering up their weapon systems. Chen was already moving before the first energy readings appeared on her displays. "Battle stations, all ships, execute defensive pattern Theta 9. Get those civilian ships behind the Mars defense line." The Kryvax's first strike was devastating but revealed their expectations. They targeted Earth's largest military installations with precision strikes, clearly expecting humanity's resistance to crumble with the loss of its command structure. They hadn't counted on humanity's hard-learned lessons from its own wars. Earth's defense network was decentralized, redundant, and far more robust than the Kryvax anticipated. When their initial strike failed to cripple humanity's military capability, they seemed genuinely surprised. "Their tactics are predictable," Chen observed, watching the battle unfold from her backup command center deep within Olympus Mons on Mars. They're fighting like they expect us to follow some kind of script. The first battle lasted 6 hours. Earth's forces suffered heavy losses, but the Kryvax paid dearly for every kilometer they advanced. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable, demonstrated tactics that seemed to confound the alien vessels. When the Kryvax finally withdrew to regroup, they had lost 2 of their 7 ships. In the aftermath, Chen addressed the United Earth Council. The Kryvax underestimated us because they see us as primitive. Their technology is advanced, but their thinking is rigid. They expect us to fight according to their rules of warfare, rules they've probably enforced across countless star systems. But humanity has never been good at following rules. The council chamber was silent as she continued. We're facing an empire that's conquered who knows how many species, but they've never encountered humanity before. They think their advanced technology makes victory inevitable. They're wrong. We've spent our entire history fighting against overwhelming odds, against nature, against each other, against our own limitations. Now we'll show them what humanity does best: adapt, improvise, and overcome. The council voted unanimously to reject the Kryvax's demands for surrender. Instead, they authorized the implementation of Operation Phoenix, a plan that would transform humanity's peaceful space fleet into a force unlike anything the Kryvax had encountered before. As Chen watched Earth's shipyards begin their conversion to war production, she received word that the Kryvax were broadcasting their intent to return in force. Their message was meant to inspire terror. A fleet of over 1,000 ships was being assembled. Chen's response was brief. Tell them we'll be ready, and remind them they fired the first shot, but we'll fire the last one. The war that would become known as the Liberation Conflict was about to begin, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating primitive species. The Kryvax Empire was about to learn why picking a fight with humans was a serious mistake. In the 3 months following the Kryvax's initial attack, humanity underwent a transformation that would have seemed impossible just a year earlier. The vast shipyards of Luna and Mars worked at full capacity, but they weren't building traditional warships. Instead, they were creating something entirely new. Dr. Maya Patel stood in her laboratory beneath the Himalayan mountains, surrounded by holographic projections of Kryvax technology salvaged from their destroyed vessels. They're not just technologically advanced, she explained to Admiral Chen, who had made the journey personally to review their findings. They're technologically arrogant. She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the crystalline structures that seemed to be integral to Kryvax technology. Look at this. Their systems are incredibly sophisticated, but they're also incredibly standardized. They haven't had to innovate in combat for possibly thousands of years. Every system, every protocol, every response is optimized for fighting enemies who think like they do. Chen studied the projections, and we don't think like they do. Exactly. Maya's eyes lit up with excitement. Their ships are designed to fight epic battles between massive fleets. Their weapons are meant to overwhelm traditional energy shields. But we're not building traditional ships or traditional shields. The first of humanity's new vessels was unveiled 2 weeks later. The UES Ghost didn't look like a warship. In fact, it barely looked like anything at all. Its hull was covered in metamaterials that absorbed or redirected most forms of electromagnetic radiation. Its power systems were distributed throughout the ship in a neural network pattern that made it nearly impossible to land a killing blow. Most importantly, it carried weapons that the Kryvax would never expect. We're not trying to match their technology, Maya explained to the gathered military leaders. We're circumventing it. The Ghost doesn't need to be as powerful as a Kryvax warship because it's not meant to fight like one. The first test of humanity's new strategy came sooner than expected. A Kryvax scouting force entered the solar system, probably expecting to find a demoralized humanity preparing for surrender. What they found instead was emptiness. Captain Yuki Tanaka commanded the Ghost during its first combat operation. Her crew had trained relentlessly for this moment, learning to fight in ways that went against everything traditional space combat doctrine taught. The Kryvax ships moved through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, their sensors sweeping for signs of human activity. They found nothing because they were looking for what they expected to find: large energy signatures, conventional weapon systems, traditional defensive formations. The Ghost and its two sister ships, Shadow and Wraith, waited in plain sight, their metamaterial hulls making them indistinguishable from surrounding asteroids. When the Kryvax ships passed within range, they struck. Instead of energy weapons or conventional missiles, the human ships launched swarms of microscopic machines, a technology the Kryvax had apparently never developed, perhaps considering it beneath them. These nanite swarms infiltrated the crystalline systems of the Kryvax ships through their own energy shields, which were designed to stop high-energy attacks, not clouds of nearly invisible machines. The result was devastating. The Kryvax ship's systems began failing in cascading patterns as the nanites disrupted their crystalline technology. Their crews, used to fighting with overwhelming force, had no protocols for dealing with an enemy they couldn't effectively target or defend against. "This is Ghost Actual," Tanaka reported back to command. "Operation Trojan Horse successful. 5 Kryvax vessels neutralized, 0 casualties on our side." The victory was more than just tactical. The captured Kryvax ships and their crews provided invaluable intelligence about the Empire's military structure and capabilities. More importantly, the complete recording of the battle, transmitted back to the approaching Kryvax armada, sent a clear message: humanity would not be fighting this war on their terms. Admiral Chen watched the after-action reports with grim satisfaction. The Kryvax built their empire on technological superiority, she noted to her staff. But they forgot something crucial about technology. It's not just about how advanced it is, but how you use it. The human response continued to evolve. While the Ghost-class ships proved their worth in combat, Earth's scientists and engineers worked on even more innovative solutions. They developed quantum entanglement disruptors that could sever the Kryvax's faster-than-light communications. They created artificial intelligence systems that could predict and counter Kryvax battle strategies by analyzing thousands of years of their military doctrine. But perhaps most importantly, they began to understand the psychology of their enemy. The Kryvax weren't just fighting to conquer Earth. They were fighting to maintain their image of superiority. Each unconventional human victory, each demonstration that their technology could be countered or circumvented, struck at the very foundation of their empire's authority. "We're not just fighting their ships," Chen explained to the United Earth Council. "We're fighting their worldview. Every time we succeed using methods they consider primitive or beneath them, we crack their certainty in their own superiority." As reports came in of the main Kryvax fleet's approach, humanity prepared its next series of surprises. The shipyards worked at full capacity, but now they were producing weapons and defenses that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. Maya Patel stood in her lab, looking at the latest prototype of what she called the reality inverter, a weapon that used the Kryvax's own advanced technology against them in ways they had never imagined possible. "They're coming to teach us our place in the galaxy," she said to no one in particular. "But I don't think they're going to like the lesson they learn instead." The silent response of humanity was about to become a roar that would shake the foundations of an empire built on technological arrogance. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why underestimating Earth was the last mistake any species should make. The Kryvax main fleet arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova. Over 1,000 ships, their crystalline hulls blazing with barely contained energy. But they found a solar system that had been transformed into something they had never encountered in their millennia of conquest. Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez floated in zero gravity aboard the stealth station Archimedes, watching through quantum-linked displays as the massive alien fleet passed through the outer system. "They still think like landlords," he observed to his research team. "They're following the same invasion patterns they've probably used for the last 1,000 years. The Archimedes was humanity's newest weapon, Not a ship or a battle station, but a mobile laboratory where human scientists could observe and adapt to Kryvak's tactics in real time. Rodriguez's team had spent months studying the crystalline technology that seemed to be the cornerstone of Kryvak's superiority. Their entire civilization is built on these crystals, Dr. Sarah Mbeki, the team's quantum physicist, explained during an emergency briefing. They're not just technology, they're a philosophy. The Kryvaks believe in perfect order, in unchanging patterns. It's why they can't adapt to our tactics. That understanding led to humanity's next innovation. While the Ghost-class ships continued their guerrilla warfare, drawing Kryvak's forces into carefully planned ambushes, the Archimedes team developed what they called chaos seeds, quantum-engineered crystals that could interface with and disrupt Kryvak systems on a fundamental level. The first major test of this new weapon came during the Battle of Europa. The Kryvaks, frustrated by their inability to engage human forces in traditional combat, launched a massive assault on Jupiter's moonbase. They expected to find a heavily fortified position that they could overwhelm with superior numbers. Instead, they found something else entirely. Captain Wei Chen, no relation to the admiral, commanded the defense of Europa, but not from any ship or bunker. Instead, she directed the battle from within Europa's ice crust itself, where humans had built a network of quantum-linked facilities that could move and reconfigure themselves like a living organism. They're scanning for shield signatures and weapon emplacements, Wei reported as the Kryvak's fleet moved into position. Initiate Operation Labyrinth. The surface of Europa seemed to come alive. What the Kryvak sensors identified as defensive installations were actually elaborate holograms, while the real human forces lay hidden within the moon's thick ice layer. As the alien fleet moved in for what they thought would be a decisive strike, Wei gave the order. Release the chaos seeds. Thousands of tiny crystalline particles, each no larger than a grain of sand, were launched into space. To Kryvak sensors, they appeared as mere debris, indistinguishable from the ice particles that constantly surrounded Europa. But when they came in contact with the alien ships' hulls, they began their work. The chaos seeds were designed not to destroy Kryvak's technology, but to introduce subtle, cascading errors into their perfectly ordered systems. Ship after ship began experiencing inexplicable malfunctions. Crystal matrices that had functioned flawlessly for centuries began generating conflicting signals. Communication networks dissolved into quantum static. Their entire technology is based on perfect crystalline alignment, Dr. Mbeki explained as they watched the battle unfold. We're not fighting their technology. We're fighting their assumptions about how technology should work. The Kryvak's response was predictable. They attempted to restore order by channeling more power through their systems, trying to overwhelm what they perceived as simple interference. This only accelerated the chaos seeds effect, creating a feedback loop that turned their own energy against them. Admiral Chen, watching from her command center on Mars, nodded in satisfaction. They're so convinced of their superiority that they can't imagine their technology being used against them. That's why they'll lose this war. But humanity's greatest innovation wasn't technological. It was psychological. As news of the Battle of Europa spread through quantum channels that the Kryvaks couldn't block, other species under their control began to take notice. The image of the unbeatable empire was cracking. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore, Admiral Chen told her officers. We're fighting to show the galaxy that technological superiority isn't everything. That innovation, adaptation, and the willingness to think differently are more powerful than any weapon. The chaos seeds were just the beginning. Human scientists, now working in collaboration with defectors from other species in the Kryvak's empire, began developing new ways to turn the aliens' rigid thinking against them. They created quantum viruses that could propagate through the Kryvaks' own communication networks, carrying not destruction but ideas. Dangerous ideas about resistance, about change, about the possibility of defeating the undefeatable. On the Archimedes, Rodriguez and his team worked tirelessly on their next project, a way to not just disrupt Kryvak's technology, but to fundamentally alter it. They see their crystalline tech as perfect, unchangeable. He explained to visiting officials. We're going to show them that even crystals can evolve. As the war entered its 6th month, humanity had learned to turn its perceived weakness, its primitive technology and thinking, into its greatest strength. Every human innovation was unpredictable, every strategy unexpected, every victory a reminder that the galaxy's oldest empire had grown too rigid, too certain of its own superiority. The Kryvax were learning, too late, that they had made a catastrophic mistake. They had judged humanity by its technological level, never considering that technology wasn't the only measure of advancement. They had started this war expecting to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, humanity was teaching them about the power of innovation under fire. The war had entered its 8th month when humanity demonstrated that its greatest strength wasn't its technology or tactics, but its ability to unite and adapt in ways the Kryvax couldn't comprehend. The Grand Chamber of the United Earth Council, once a place of political maneuvering and regional disputes, had transformed into something unprecedented. Representatives from every corner of Earth sat alongside holographic projections of leaders from Mars colonies and deep space installations. But most surprisingly, among them were also representatives of other species, former subjects of the Kryvax Empire who had witnessed humanity's resistance and chosen to defect. Ambassador Xin Liu of the Pan-Asian Alliance addressed the gathered assembly. What the Kryvax never understood is that Earth's greatest resource isn't our minerals, our technology, or even our strategic position. It's our diversity, our ability to see problems from countless different perspectives. The evidence of this truth was everywhere. In African quantum labs, scientists who had once studied tribal communication patterns were developing new ways to disrupt Kryvax fleet coordination. Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime concepts were being integrated into AI prediction systems, creating battle algorithms that the Kryvax computers couldn't anticipate. Dr. Elena Rossi stood before a prototype in her Vatican City laboratory, a marriage of ancient Roman military tactics and cutting-edge quantum technology. The Kryvax think in straight lines, she explained to the visiting delegation, which included both human military leaders and alien defectors. They see strategy as a series of perfect, crystalline formations. We're teaching them that the universe isn't that simple. The prototype she demonstrated was called the Legion System, a network of small, autonomous units that could function independently but share a collective consciousness through quantum entanglement. Like the ancient Roman legions, each unit could adapt to local conditions while maintaining coordinated strategic objectives. Kittel, a former Kryvax system administrator who had defected after witnessing humanity's early victories, watched the demonstration with all 4 of his eyes wide. In 10,000 years, the Empire never conceived of such an approach. They would consider it inefficient. Inefficient doesn't mean ineffective, Admiral Chen responded. Humanity survived and thrived precisely because we never discovered the perfect solution. We had to learn to work with imperfection, to adapt, to find strength in our differences. The Legion system proved its worth during the Battle of Saturn's Rings. The Kryvax, still thinking in terms of large-scale fleet engagements, deployed a massive battle group to secure what they believed was a crucial strategic position. Instead, they found themselves facing thousands of small autonomous units that seemed to move with both individual intelligence and collective purpose. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the defense from the stealth carrier Magellan, watched as the Legion units swarmed through the ice and rock of Saturn's rings. They're trying to establish a battle line, she noted with grim satisfaction. They still don't understand that we're not playing by their rules. The Legion units struck from all directions, using the debris of the rings as cover. Each unit was capable of independent action, but through their quantum link, they created patterns of attack that seemed to shift and evolve in real time. The Kryvax fleet, designed to fight in organized formations, found itself unable to establish effective targeting solutions or maintain defensive positions. But the true power of human unity showed itself not in the battle itself, but in what happened next. As the Legion units engaged the Kryvax fleet, civilian mining ships that had been hidden in the rings began their own operation. These ships, operated by crews from the asteroid belt colonies, had generations of experience in ice mining and zero-gravity operations. The Kryvax see civilian and military operations as entirely separate, explained Mining Chief Olafsson as his crews moved into position. They can't imagine that a mining ship could be part of a military strategy. Using modified mining equipment, these civilian ships began altering the composition of Saturn's rings themselves, creating gravitational anomalies that played havoc with Kryvax navigation systems. The chaos seeds developed earlier had taught humanity that Kryvax technology was vulnerable to environmental disruption. Now, they were turning the entire battlefield into a weapon. The result was devastating. Kryvax ships, their crystalline systems unable to compensate for the constantly shifting gravitational fields, found themselves out of position, their carefully planned formations shattered. The Legion units, guided by their quantum network and human intuition, struck at every vulnerability. But perhaps most significantly, the battle was being broadcast throughout the galaxy on frequencies the Kryvax couldn't block. Other subjugated species watched as the mighty Empire's ships were outmaneuvered not just by human military vessels, but by converted mining ships and improvised weapons. This is how empires fall, Admiral Chen observed as reports of the victory came in. Not just through military defeat, but through the destruction of their mythology of invincibility. In the aftermath of the Saturn battle, more defectors began arriving from throughout the Kryvax Empire. Each brought new knowledge, new perspectives, and new ways to fight. The Kryvax had spent millennia forcing the galaxy into their image of perfect order. Now that very order was becoming their greatest weakness. The United Earth Council chamber became a symbol of something the Kryvax had never imagined possible. A coalition of species united not by force or technological superiority, but by the shared desire for freedom and the recognition that strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. As humanity prepared for what everyone knew would be the final phase of the war, Admiral Chen addressed the expanded council. The Kryvax thought they were superior because they had achieved perfect order. But the universe isn't about order. It's about adaptation, about finding strength in chaos, about turning differences into advantages. That's what humanity has always understood, and that's why we'll win this war. The stage was set for the final confrontation. But this time, humanity wouldn't be fighting alone. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the greatest power comes not from technological advancement, but from the ability to unite, adapt, and embrace the chaos that the Kryvax had spent millennia trying to eliminate. The final battle began not with a bang, but with silence. The Kryvax Supreme Fleet, comprising over 3,000 ships, emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Their crystalline hulls formed a lattice of light so vast it could be seen from Earth with the naked eye, a last display of overwhelming force from an empire that knew only one way to fight. First Speaker Zorax's transmission reached every communication system in the solar system. Your resistance ends today. The natural order will be restored. Admiral Chen, standing on the bridge of humanity's newest vessel, the UES Prometheus, allowed herself a small smile. Natural order, she mused. They still don't understand. The Prometheus wasn't the largest ship in Earth's fleet. In fact, it was relatively small. But it represented everything humanity had learned during the war. Its hull incorporated both human technology and modified Kryvax crystals. Its crew included not just humans but defectors from a dozen species, each bringing their own perspective and expertise. All ships, execute Operation Babel, Chen commanded. What the Kryvax saw next defied their millennia of military doctrine. The human fleet didn't form up into defensive positions. Instead, it seemed to dissolve into chaos. Ghost-class ships activated their metamaterial camouflage. Legion units scattered in seemingly random patterns. Mining ships dove into asteroid fields. "They're retreating," a Kryvax commander reported triumphantly. "The primitives finally accept their inevitable defeat." But Dr. Maya Patel, now serving aboard the Prometheus as chief science officer, knew better. "They see chaos and assume weakness," she said. "They're about to learn their final lesson." The first phase of Operation Babel activated. Throughout the solar system, quantum entanglement nodes that had been secretly placed over the past months began to pulse. These nodes, each incorporating a modified chaos seed, didn't target the Kryvax ships directly. Instead, they began to alter the fundamental quantum fields of space itself. The effect was subtle at first. Kryvax crystal matrices began experiencing micro-fluctuations, nothing their systems couldn't handle individually. But as the network of quantum nodes expanded, the fluctuations grew and synchronized. "Their entire technology is based on perfect crystalline harmony," Maya explained as she monitored the readings. "We're not trying to break that harmony. We're changing the music." The second phase began. Legion units, which the Kryvax had dismissed as scattered and fleeing, suddenly activated their quantum links. But instead of coordinating military strikes, they began broadcasting on frequencies that resonated with the altered quantum fields. The Kryvax fleet's formation began to waver. Their crystals, the foundation of their technology and society, were being forced to vibrate to a new rhythm, one that didn't follow their rigid patterns of order. "All ships are experiencing systemic disruptions," Catul reported from his station, his former knowledge of Kryvax systems proving invaluable. "They're trying to compensate by channeling more power through their crystal matrices." "Exactly as predicted," Chen nodded. "Execute final phase." The Prometheus, which the Kryvax had ignored as insignificant, activated its primary system, a device that Dr. Patel had dubbed the Harmony Inverter. It took the quantum disruptions affecting the Kryvax fleet and reflected them back, amplified, and focused through specially grown crystals that incorporated both human and Kryvax technology. The effect was catastrophic for the Empire's fleet. Their crystals, already stressed by the quantum field disruptions, began to resonate with frequencies they were never designed to handle. But instead of shattering, they began to transform. Throughout the Kryvax fleet, crystal matrices that had maintained rigid patterns for centuries began to evolve, to adapt, to change in ways their creators had thought impossible. Ship after ship lost power as their systems underwent a fundamental transformation. First, Speaker Zorax's voice, when it came again, held something the Kryvax had never shown before: uncertainty. "What have you done?" Admiral Chen's response was broadcast not just to the Kryvax fleet, but to every corner of their empire. "We've shown you what you forgot, that the universe isn't about maintaining perfect order. It's about adaptation, about evolution, about finding strength in change." The Supreme Fleet, pride of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, hung powerless in space. But they weren't destroyed. Their crystals, the source of their power and their limitation, had been transformed into something new, something that could no longer be used to maintain the rigid control the Empire had relied upon. In the days that followed, the effects spread throughout Kryvax space. The transformed crystals, linked through their own communication networks, carried the change to every corner of the Empire. Planetary defense systems, communication networks, the very infrastructure of their society began to shift and adapt. The empire that had sought to impose perfect order on the galaxy found itself having to adapt to a new reality, one where change was not just inevitable but necessary. 1 month later, in the Grand Chamber of the United Earth Council, representatives from dozens of formerly subjugated species gathered to sign the Concordat of Free Worlds. The Kryvax, their technology and society transformed, sent their own representatives, not as conquerors, but as equals seeking to learn a new way of existence. Admiral Chen, watching the proceedings, shared a quiet moment with Maya Patel. "They came to teach us our place in the galaxy," the scientist mused. "And we taught them instead," Chen finished. We taught them that true strength doesn't come from technological superiority or perfect order. It comes from our ability to adapt, to change, to find unity in our differences. As the signing ceremony concluded, the assembled representatives looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's vast windows. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed, where adaptation was valued over rigid perfection, and where humanity's greatest contribution had been teaching an ancient empire how to change. The war that began with an empire's arrogance ended with a lesson that would reshape the galaxy. Never underestimate a species that had turned its own chaos into strength.